Okay, it is now 5:02 PM. Pursuant to Chapter 551, Title 5, Section 551.041 of the Texas Government Code, the Texas Open Meetings Act, notice was given that the City Commission of the City of Brownsville would conduct a regular meeting on Tuesday, June 1st, 2021 at 5 PM via the WebEx teleconference meeting link provided at the City of Brownsville Agenda Center. This notice and meeting agenda were posted at the City of Brownsville Agenda Center, and members of the public wishing to participate in the meeting hosted through WebEx teleconference could join at the following numbers that were provided on the agenda. Members of the public who submitted a public comment form will be permitted to
Okay, let's just give it a little bit for her to get back on if we can. Usually works out pretty quick.
Next to the mayor. Isn't that your name? Yeah.
I just ask that everybody that please mute your microphones, please. All right, while Lori's figuring out her situation, I'll go ahead and just continue reading the notice of the meeting. Members of the public who submitted a public comment form will be permitted to offer public comments as provided by the agenda and as permitted by the presiding officer during the meeting. A recording of the meeting will be made and will be available to the public in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. So the first is call to order. So I would now call this meeting to order. Welcome everybody that's here. And the next item would be invocation. Pastor Brad?
Let's pray. Father God, we thank you so much for the many blessings that we have. Lord, we thank you for the rain we were blessed with today, and we ask you to continue to give us the rain we need in the amounts that will be good for us, and only that. And Lord, we thank you so much for the healing that has been happening in the city of Brownsville. For those that still need healing, we ask you to bring it. And Lord, for those that have lost loved ones, we ask you to give them comfort. And Lord God, we ask you from Washington, D.C. to Austin to here in Brownsville to destroy deception in all of us and help us to see your unchanging truth and understand it and receive it. Lord God, for this meeting today, I ask you to give divine wisdom and direction to our mayor and all of our commissioners and everybody that's presenting everything for the best for the city of Brownsville and all of its inhabitants. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen. And now we're going to have a short moment of silence where we can all add our prayers to what has been spoken. Amen.
Thank you very much, Pastor. Appreciate that. Okay, so Lori's still working on some technical issues, so we're just going to go ahead and keep going. The next item is proclamations. The first proclamation is designating June 2021 as Men's Health Month in the city of Brownsville. I'll go ahead and read that one. This is a proclamation of the City Commission of Brownsville, Texas, designating the month of June 2021 as Men's Health Month. Whereas, despite advances in medical technology and research, men continue to live an average of 5 years less than women, with Native American and African American men having the lowest life expectancy. And whereas COVID-19 is destroying lives across the country, with the Centers for Disease Control reporting that males are more likely to die from this pandemic. And whereas encouraging safe behaviors, including social distancing, wearing masks, and being vaccinated will help stop the spread of COVID-19. And whereas educating the public and healthcare providers about the importance of a healthy lifestyle and early detection of male health problems will result in reducing rates of mortality from disease. And whereas men who are educated about the value that preventative health can play in prolonging their lifespan and their role as productive family members will be more likely to participate in health screenings. And whereas fathers who maintain a healthy lifestyle are role models for their children and have happier and healthier children. And whereas Men's Health Network worked with Congress to develop a national men's health awareness period as a special campaign to help educate men, boys, and their families about the importance of positive health attitudes and preventative health practices. And whereas the Men's Health Month website has been established at www.menshealthmonth.org and features resources, proclamations, and information about awareness events and activities, including Wear Blue for Men's Health, www.wearblueformenshealth.com. And whereas the City of Brownsville's Men's Health Month will focus on a broad range of men's health issues, including heart disease, mental health, diabetes, and prostate, testicular, and colon cancer. And whereas the citizens of this city are encouraged to increase awareness of the importance of a healthy lifestyle, regular exercise, and medical checkups. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City Commission of the City of Brownsville that the month of June 2021 be designated and recognized as Men's Health Month in the City of Brownsville. Additionally, by virtue of the authority vested by the Charter of Brownsville and on behalf of all our citizens, the City Commission humbly encourages all the citizens of Brownsville to pursue preventative health practices and early detection efforts throughout the year. Done on this, the first day of June 2021, by me, the Mayor, and the rest of the City Commission. Thank you. Is there anybody who requested this item who wishes to speak? Okay, very good. The next item is a proclamation designating June 2021 as Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, and Queer Pride Month in the City of Brownsville. Is Commissioner Tetro here?
Mayor, I don't see her.
Okay, you're back, Lori, welcome.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll go ahead and read that one as well since I was a co-sponsor of that. This is a proclamation of the City Commission of Brownsville, Texas, designating June 2021 as Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, and Queer Pride Month. Whereas across the nation, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer Pride Month, LGBT.
I thought they would have started the.
Can we please have these microphones muted, please? Whereas across the nation, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer Pride Month, LGBTQ Pride Month is celebrated in June, a symbolic month in which LGBTQ community members and supporters come together for various celebrations of Pride, including parades, workshops, concerts, and events to promote understanding, acceptance, and equality for its community. Whereas LGBTQ Pride Month recognizes the impact that lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer individuals have had on our history, locally, nationally, and internationally. Whereas the City of Brownsville has a diverse and thriving LGBTQ community that actively contributes to the overall quality of life and culture in Brownsville. Whereas LGBTQ individuals deserve to know their community stands besides them, and to live without fear of discrimination, harassment, and persecution, regardless of their gender identity, sexual orientation, or gender expression. And whereas the City of Brownsville is strengthened by inclusion, justice, and love for all, and is committed to supporting visibility, dignity, and equity for all of its residents. Now, therefore, we, the members of the City Commission of the City of Brownsville, Texas, by virtue of the authority vested by the Charter of said city, and on behalf of all of our citizens, do hereby designate June 2021 as Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, and Queer Pride Month, and further call upon the residents of Brownsville to eliminate prejudice everywhere it exists and to celebrate the great diversity of this city. Done on this first day of June 2021 by me, the Mayor, and the rest of the City Commission. Thank you. Now, do we have anybody who wishes to speak on this item? I think I saw Joe here. Joe, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you so much, Mayor. Good evening. Buenas tardes, Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Joe Conuvalles. My pronouns are he, him, el. or anything with respect. I serve as one of 2 co-chairs for the City of Brownsville LGBTQ Task Force. I want to thank you all so much for your support in recognizing a community that has been historically and systemically marginalized. It is important to uplift the voices of a community that even to this day faces discrimination, harassment, and violence in disproportionate ways compared to heterosexual counterparts. Your support and commitment to this community does not go without notice. In 2021, well, I'm going to share why this work is important. In 2021, the Human Rights Campaign, just for this year alone, has noted 27 reported murders of trans people in this country. These are the ones that we know of, as many trans people are misgendered by police or disapproving families. The Trevor Project National Survey on LGBTQ Youth Mental Health for 2021 notes 42% of LGBTQ youth in this country seriously considered attempting suicide in the past year, including more than half of trans and non-binary youth, with 75% of LGBTQ youth reporting that they had experienced discrimination based on their sexual orientation, identity, or at least just how they express themselves. In our recent Texas legislative session, there were so many bills directly attacking trans youth in one way or another that almost made it into law if it weren't for activists, organizers, and parents across the state showing up to speak out against hateful legislation. Although many people believe that we all have equal protections under the law, we do not. Queer and trans people can still be fired from their jobs, evicted from their homes, and be discriminated against in public accommodations with no repercussions, especially in Texas. This work matters. This work is about saving lives. This proclamation is really breaking barriers and paving the way for border communities in South Texas to break away from machismo and homophobia and into a future where we are all seen as equal and treated as such. We are not asking for anything extra. We are your primos, primas, tíos, tías, parents, loved ones, friends, and neighbors. We have always been here, and we're always going to be here. Thank you, Mayor.
Absolutely, Joe. My pleasure. And thanks for your work and for the work of the rest of the committee and the task force. Excuse me. I saw Brian here. Brian, you want to say something briefly? I know we're kind of on a short string here, but go for it.
Thank you, Mayor. Just thank you once again. I want to highlight this is our 3rd proclamation that the city has issued for marking LGBTQ month during June. And this is just great validation that the city continues to support the efforts of this community and really promote inclusivity within Brownsville. What we're trying to aim to do is create a safe city where people will feel the ability to be able to express themselves fully. So thank you so much for your continued support. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, Lori, I turn it over to you. Thanks. I think you're on mute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, our next proclamation is a proclamation designating June 2021 as Elder Abuse Prevention Month in the city of Brownsville. Mayor Mendez and Commissioner Cowan.
Commissioner Cowan, would you like to read this?
Sure, Mayor.
Thanks.
Okay, a proclamation of the City Commission of Brownsville, Texas, honoring Texas community health workers.
Sorry,
This is the wrong one. Yeah.
yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, can you see the right one now?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, I'll start again. A proclamation of the City Commission of Brownsville, Texas, designating the month of June 2021 as Elder Abuse Prevention Month. Whereas people who are elderly or have disabilities have contributed to the general welfare of the city of Brownsville by helping to preserve customs, convictions, and traditions of many people from diverse backgrounds. And whereas elderly residents and residents with disabilities are vital and integral members of our society, and their wisdom and experience have enriched our lives. And whereas abuse of the elderly people and people with disabilities in domestic and institutional settings is a widespread problem, affecting hundreds of thousands of people across the country. And whereas in 2020, there were 86,614 completed cases of elderly and disabled persons abuse in Texas, of which 52,506 were confirmed. And whereas elder abuse is grossly underreported because the elderly who are being abused find it very difficult to tell anyone and are usually ashamed and sometimes afraid. And whereas elder abuse happens to men and women of all income levels, all cultural and ethnic groups, whether they are in good health or incapacitated in some way, in poor neighborhoods and in suburbia. And whereas many of the cases investigated by Adult Protective Services in Texas involve self-neglect, and it is our duty as citizens to reach out to people in need. And whereas by combating abuse and empowering the elderly and the disabled in our community, the quality of life will be improved for all senior citizens, allowing them to continue to live as independently as possible, adding to their overall well-being. And whereas every citizen can make a difference in our community by recognizing and reporting the signs of abuse or neglect of the elderly and disabled to promote a culture of respect and safety. Now, therefore, we, the members of the City Commission of the City of Brownsville, Texas, by virtue of the authority vested by the charter of said city, and on behalf of all our citizens, do hereby designate the month of June 2021 as Elder Abuse Prevention Month, and further call upon the residents of Brownsville to work together to help reduce abuse and neglect of people who are elderly or have disabilities. Done on this, the first day of June 2021, the Mayor and the City Commission of Brownsville, Texas.
Thank you, Commissioner Cowan. Is there somebody here to speak on this?
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Maria Ramos. I'm the APS supervisor here in the Brownsville office. Just wanted to thank you all for helping us raise awareness about, this month being the prevention of any elder abuse. Elder abuse can be physical, emotional, sexual, and financial. It also includes people that are being neglected and those that they neglect themselves. Raising awareness and taking steps to prevent abuse in our community is everyone's business. At Adult Protective Services, we investigate abuse, neglect, and financial exploitation of adults 65 years and older, as well as those 18 plus with substantial disabilities. If you suspect abuse, neglect, or exploitation, please report it. All reports are confidential and our hotline is open 24/7. You can call 1-800-252-5400, or you can report it online on www.texabusehotline.org. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maria, for sharing that with us, and thank you for requesting the proclamation.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. Our final proclamation is a proclamation honoring Texas community health workers and Denise Martinez of the National Community Health Worker Training Center, Texas A&M School of Public Health. Commissioner Galansky Pisania and Commissioner Gowan.
Commissioner Gowan, would you like to read this, even though it's A&M?
Be happy to.
Thank you.
A proclamation of the City Commission of Brownsville, Texas, honoring Texas community health workers and honoring Denise Martinez, Training Center Manager, National Community Health Worker Training Center, Texas A&M School of Public Health. Whereas community health workers are nationally recognized as essential frontline public health workers by government agencies, and they play a key role in advancing health equity, increasing access to care, and reducing health disparities. And whereas improving the health of populations requires sustainable multi-sector collaborations between healthcare providers, public and state agencies, and their community stakeholders. And whereas the 4,000 plus Texas community health workers and community health workers instructors serve a vital role in improving the health of their communities through community outreach and health education. Whereas Texas was the first state to formally recognize community health workers as members of the public health workforce through the signing of House Bill 1864, and is one of the few states that offers a statewide community health worker certification. And whereas Denise Martinez,
Honey, I can't see if your name is up there.
CHWIMPH.
It doesn't matter. Your
Can you please mute your microphone?
is
Can-
passed.
Hello, can you please mute your microphone?
Hello.
Please mute your microphone. Training Center Manager leads the efforts of the National Community Health Worker Training Center, Texas A&M School of Public Health, which to date has served over 7,000 trainees. And whereas the National Community Health Worker Training Center is housed within the Center for Community Health Development located at Texas A&M University of School of Public Health, and in 2010, CCHD established the National Community Health Worker Training Center in response to partner communities' needs identified in South Texas. And whereas community health workers are being recognized for their passion and dedication to improving community health. Now, therefore, we, the members of the City Commission of the City of Brownsville, Texas, by virtue of the authority vested
Maybe
by
they'll
the
get to
charter
this
of
after these
said city,
proclamations.
and do hereby honor Texas Community Health Workers and Denise Martinez, Training Center Manager of the National Community Health Worker Training Center, Texas A&M School of Public Health, and urge all citizens to take recognition of these health workers and the National Community Health Worker Training Center and its contributions to this community. Done on this first day of June 2021, signed by the mayor and the city commission. I'm sorry for the interruption. Someone's not muting their mic, but thank you, Denise, for what you do. I have long been working with community health workers via the School of Public Health, University of Texas School of Public Health, and SuClinica for many years. And I certainly can't imagine going out into the community without them. They extend my reach as a physician, my reach as a elected official, and they are priceless in my opinion. So thank you for what you do. And would you like to say a few words?
Yes, thank you. I am very humbled and proud to be receiving it on behalf of my team. And I want to thank my fellow team member and colleague Paula for submitting the proclamation. CHW's promotores should definitely be celebrated more than just once a year. And they are truly an asset to the community and very proud to be honoring them today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes,
I would
thank
like
you.
to, because in the past 2 years, since before I was elected, I met a lot of promotoras y les tengo que agradecer todo y más mejor en público porque de veras a las que conozco me han ayudado tremendamente, especialmente ahora desde fines de enero porque me ayudaron a comunicarme con la gente y cómo conectarlos con las vacunas. So they have each one has their own broad social network. Each one has their own focus on issues of importance. Some are health related, some are civil rights related, some inform people about their rights as low-wage employees, low-wage workers, or domestic violence. The spectrum is really broad, and their reach is they cover everywhere. And so I could, like Dr. Gowan said, I couldn't do some of the work that I do without their help. Y estoy tremendamente agradecida por ustedes. Sinceramente, ustedes saben lo que significan para mí. Entonces, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Y yo también les quiero decir gracias a Dina y su grupo por todo el trabajo que hacen en la comunidad. Sin ustedes sería mucho, mucho más difícil. Gracias por todo.
Okay, I didn't know if someone else wanted to speak.
I would like to echo those sentiments and have learned a lot just hearing this today. So thank you. Gracias.
Thanks, Commissioner. All right, Lori, thank you. Let's
Okay.
move to the next item.
Okay, our next item is public comment period. And our first public comment form was received by John Barham. I believe he was on here. Mr. Barham, are you present?
We know his microphone works. We can just unmute him now.
Okay, Mr. Barham?
Are we connecting?
Yes, sir. We can hear you loud and clear, John. You'll have 3 minutes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, can you see me?
No, we can't, but that's all right. We don't need to see you as long as we can hear you.
Okay, it was about 3 weeks ago. And I discovered that the commission was considering a non-discrimination ordinance. So that piqued my interest, and I began to call around in South Texas to other municipalities, going all the way up to Corpus, and they didn't really know what I was talking about. Most of them did not have anything like an NDO. So eventually, I was able to come up with a draft of what the commission is considering. And I went through it about 3 times. And after studying it, I began to have some questions. Question number 1 for myself was, is an NDO really, really necessary? And I asked that because doing some digging, I found out that just about a year ago, Title VII of the 1964 Civil Rights Act was enhanced and enlarged by the Supreme Court. It was a landmark decision. This part of the Civil Rights Act has to do with employment, job security, and professional life. So you don't need that in your non-discrimination ordinance. In other words, that is already covered. Then I found out that very soon, Title II of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 is also going to be up before the Supreme Court, and it is likely that the Supreme Court will do the same thing as they did with Title VII. Title II has to do with public accommodations, and that would include restaurants, lunch counters, hotels, motels, any sort of commercial interest. So the interest of the LGBTQ community will be covered by that. I also began to have questions.
That's time, Mayor.
Mayor, you're on mute.
Can you hear me?
Mayor is on mute.
Hello, Lori, go ahead.
Okay, our next public comment form was received from Mr. Edward Padron. Are you present, Mr. Padron?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Barham, you had 3 minutes, sir. You ran out of time. What I was going to say was go ahead. If there's anything else you need to say, go ahead and email all of us, and we'll go ahead and look at that statement. Thanks.
This is Mr. Padron speaking. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
I would like to surrender my 3 minutes for Mr. Barlam to continue.
It doesn't, I don't think it works that way. Mr. Padron, if you'd like to speak, go ahead.
Sir, it is part of Robert's Rules of Order that if
Council?
It's not allowed as per the rules established by the city of Brownsville to yield minutes to other speakers.
Okay, it's not?
It is not.
Okay,
Well,
Mr.
thank you.
Padron, you're free. Feel free to speak if you'd like, sir.
No, I wish to send. No, sir.
Okay.
Thank
Okay.
you very much.
Thank you. Sure.
Okay, our final public comment form was received from Mr. Ruben Rodriguez. Mr. Rodriguez, are you present?
there. Now they can't hear us.
What's the problem?
You're putting an answer up. But they-
Mr. Rodriguez, are you present? Okay, Mayor, I don't see him or hear Mr. Ruben Rodriguez.
Okay, thank you. Council, there's been a lot of speakers over the last couple of months regarding this this topic, and everybody, you know, there's been a few that refer to some sort of draft document. I don't know how they've gotten a hold of it, and the commission or nobody else has. So if there's any sort of document that's floating around there that has something to do with something we may look at or approve, I'd really like to take a look at it myself, and I think the rest of the commission should as well.
It might be coming from the task force, but I'm not sure about that, or it's some other national thing going around.
Yeah.
There is a draft, Mr. Mayor. There is a
Okay.
draft that is circulating. It's not even in close to a final form.
Okay.
It was acquired through a PIR, and that's
Okay.
how.
All right,
it was,
very good.
disseminated.
Well, that clears that up. Thanks, Council. All right, Lori, thank you. Next item.
Okay, we'll move on to our work sessions. Our first work session is Sunday Service Pilot Update, Multimodal Transportation Department.
Mayor and City Commission, good afternoon. This is Juan Garza, Multimodal Transportation Director. I do have with me our Assistant Director, Ms. Jenny Garcia, and so she'll be providing a quick update on our Sunday service.
Thank you for the introduction, Joel. As he said, I will be discussing our rollout of our Sunday service pilot. I want to note that this is a pilot. This simply allows us to make adjustments and improvements to the routes, expand our service hours, reduce our service hours, or make any adjustment to our staffing needs as we identify the trends of our ridership throughout the time period of our pilot, which will be 6 to 12 months. Now, we started out with public feedback surveys to determine and make recommendations on our Sunday service system and our hours. We had a goal of reaching 1,000 riders, and we had our staff out at multiple facilities, and it's including events that we participated in, collecting these surveys by hand. They were done both in Spanish and English. We collected about 3% online, and we started March 1st and ended April 21st. So we collected quite a bit within that short time frame. On the next slide, we identified what routes the riders would most likely would like to use on Sundays. And Route 2, one of our most popular routes, it's also our most popular route through the weekdays as well as Saturday. We expect to see this on Sunday, or anticipate and hope to see that. When we also noted Route 1, Route 3, and 5, and 6 and 9 to be significant rider requests for Sundays. On the next slide, we asked our points of interest, our places of interest for our riders. A lot of the riders noted shopping areas, such as grocery stores and the mall. So Walmart was our highest place of interest, the mall right behind that, HEB, downtown, and flea market. On the next slide, we identified the Sunday service start time, or we got the feedback for Sunday service start time of the hours between 7 a.m. and 8 a.m. We had a close trend there, only 3 additional riders that chose at 8 a.m. On the next slide, we identified, or the riders noted what time our Sunday service would end, that they would like to see it in, and it's between 5 and 6 p.m. Now, that was the feedback that we received from the public on the surveys. This here is our information that we collected in-house at B Metro. This is ridership by route. These are the most used routes by our riders on Saturdays. Again, Route 2 is significantly high. We have Route 5 and Route 9 that are also above 10%, so we take that into consideration. We also noted our peak hours that our riders will be, that our current riders utilize our system. 9:30 and 12 p.m. and 1 o'clock are our peak hours on Saturdays. Our daily average ridership for Saturdays are on are 1,263 for the months of March 2020 through February 2021. We did use these numbers from Saturday, so that way we can anticipate our numbers for Sunday. So we do not have the same amount of ridership that we do during the weekday. So you typically will use your weekday ridership to identify any trends for any additional new services. So with that being said, we took in consideration our public responses and our feedback and in-house information that we have collected from our data, and we identified 5 routes. However, 2 of those routes interline, so we established 7 routes based off our public responses. And typically when you have a weekend service, it's you reduce your services by 30 to 50% because you do not have the same amount of ridership in your throughout your weekdays as you do Saturdays and Sundays. And this is also consistent with the national standard across transit in general. And with that, our public responses and our data, our service hours we recommended 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Here you have a snapshot of our system map that we'll be providing for Sunday service. And we have route 1, 2, 4, 5, 8, 9, and 11. That's 7 routes total. On the next slides are a snapshot, a quick overview of each individual route and their main points of interest. As we noted in our public response, we have the flea market and Walmart on Route 1 on the west end. On the next slide, we have Route 2, our most popular route, the mall, our main shopping areas, Target, Academy, even our transfer stations. Next slide. Route 4, we have our shopping malls as well. This is the route that interlines with Route 1 and our grocery stores. Route 5 is also hits our hotspots of H-E-B, Walmart, and our transfer centers and additional Walmarts and H-E-Bs. Route 8 is more residential. And this is so we can pick up all our residential, make sure we hit that hotspot there and identify for our grocery places and our terminals and the university as well. And our Route 9, Austin, is our Four Corners and our airport as well as our plaza. And our last route, Route 11, OPI, also hits our Walmarts and our main transfer stations. Now, with this information provided, we established our staffing needs, the amount of people that we'll be needing to run our services. We'll need a total of 13 drivers to run for that day, 1 supervisor, 1 dispatcher, and one customer service. We also will have some additional positions that will need to be filled as we continue with the service. And that's noted on the right side of the screen on the chart. On our maintenance side, we have 5 staff that we have to run service, and we'll need an additional 1.5 full-time positions to continue running the service. On the next slide, we've identified our projected cost. These are preliminary numbers. Total operating costs that we've identified is $258,000. Our first vehicle, our first transit contract with our maintenance. This is a preliminary number at $132,000. And additional fuel costs would be $39,000. These are annual numbers, so a total of $430,142.
So Mayor, Commission, if you remember, during the budget process, the commission approved $400,000 for this pilot. And so obviously we'll be using that. We'll work with finance to find the additional funding to make sure this pilot goes off smoothly.
Now, our rollout date will be July 25th, Sunday, July 25th, and we will be doing a ribbon cutting, and we hope to see you all there. And we are very excited to launch this new service and provide to the community.
I have a question, if I might. Does the La Pulga route go to the sports park, or it just ends at La Pulga?
It currently ends at the Pulga. That's the farthest that we have. We are actually looking into expanding it now that we have that connector through the frontage to go over into the sports parks. And so, yes, Commissioner, that's something we'll, hopefully we can try to implement into this one. If not, it will be into the next one.
I was thinking of it in terms of course, reaching the sports park for games and recreation, but also since there's a lot of housing that's going in there eventually. So I'm glad you'll look at it again next year.
Thank you. This is great news. Obviously, I've been on you guys about this for a while just because it's much needed service. And the survey that came back, it's been like 5 years since this survey was done, and it identified Sunday service as one of the top 3 things that the community wanted. I really applaud your efforts in getting this going. Joel, you've done a great job since you've come on board. And, I really appreciate you taking the community feedback on which routes and times and everything. That's the way we should do it. So I'm excited as well to get this going. Thank you, everybody in the department, for your work, and anxious to see how it goes. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor.
So the pilot will last for how long? From July 25th to the end of the calendar year?
So yeah, it should be a 1-year pilot. We'll reevaluate it at the 6-month mark to see how the ridership, our folks actually using it. Do we maybe need to expand what we thought? Right now it's 9 to 6 p.m. Maybe at the 6th month, maybe we need to add either some more slots or more rides. And so yes, it is a 1-year, 12-month, starting from the July 25th. But we'll kind of come back and evaluate it at the 6-month mark, and we can come back and give that update to the commission at that point also.
So yeah, Commissioner, let's try and get the word out as much as we can. Anyone else? All right, thanks.
Our next work session item is item 2, Fire Station Number 1 update, Brownsville Fire Department.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. We just want to give you a brief high-level update on the current environmental assessment that was completed of Central Fire Station this past March. Based on the information that we received, the visible fungal growth on the majority of the surfaces within the first, second floor of the station did not exceed any of the regulatory thresholds, except with the exception of one area in the second floor north pole slide area, which is separated by a glass door and has since been restricted to any access or use of that building. You can change the slide. Also, the bioaerosols were tested for that building were tested way lower than even the outdoor area. Since then, we've been in the process of transitioning crews to temporary locations just to enable the remediation process to take place and just in the best interest and the safety of all of our personnel. During this time, no services will be interrupted during the temporary transitions, and we will monitor response times for the downtown area during this remediation phase. We're currently working with internal services and the facilities management to contract remediation services for any cleanup of the station. And I'll pass it over to the next steps here with Roxanne.
So we've already contracted out, as a matter of fact, the plan came in on Friday, and today we made contact with the contractor who will be doing the cleanup, containment, and clearing out the area. It should take about a month or so to get it completed. The plan is it'll be including wiping the walls. It could be removing part of the walls. After that, we will go back in and begin putting back the walls and doing any type of work that needs to be placed back in place after they've removed the mold and the fungus. We also will be working with an architect to perform a facility assessment of the fire station, which will give us a long-term solution to the issue. That'll be happening after the mold, everything has been taken care of. We will be working with Office of Historical Preservation to make sure that we comply with any of those regulations. Currently, everything is in the interior at this point, but once we do have that assessment of the facility, we'll know more. And recommendations will be submitted as far as what we can do to bring it back to service. Any questions?
I would just ask that the Historical Preservation Commission be included as soon as possible, since it is a historical building.
We are working with them. They're aware that we are doing this. As far as, once we do the facility assessment, they will very much be involved.
A lot of this remediation is going to be inside though, right?
Correct.
That's my understanding. I'm not aware of any remediation is going to be done on the exterior.
It's a small 25 square feet area that's going to be addressed.
Okay.
Chief, what is the nearest fire station that your men are going to be transferred to?
So we have them transferred to different locations, but as of right now, Fire Station 2 on West St. Charles will be the nearest response station.
Okay.
So it's a different of about 10 blocks or so, which they do respond to some of downtown areas district anyways.
Okay, thanks.
Does anyone else have any questions on this? All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Work session item 3, relocation of Neal House to 7th Street Linear Park update. Planning and Redevelopment Department.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the commission. We were asked to provide an update on the Neal House relocation project. This project was first approved by the City Commission back in FY 2021 in the Planning Department's work plan. The City Commission selected the preferred site for the relocation on November of 2020. A little bit of background on the Neal House. It was built by William Neal before 1868. There was an expansion to the original structure by renowned architect Ruth McGonigal, the first female architect from Rice University. Next slide. We provided an image of the front part of the structure, and you can see the rear structure that is the McGonigal addition. Next slide. Here's a better perspective where you can see the original structure as well as the 1950 expansion. Next slide. And that is the rear of the expanded structure as well. Next slide. Here is the site that was selected by the City Commission. It's not illustrative of the final site. It will fall somewhere within that green space area where the orange box is located. That specific location yet to be determined. Next slide. What we have done in phase 1 is the structural engineering for the foundation. Once it's removed or once it's moved to its permanent location, we've asked KCI Technologies to prepare the structural design of the foundation for the building. And we expect those drawings to be delivered to the city June 20th of this month. Next slide. The other part of phase 1 actually involves securing the services of a qualified mover. On May 30th, an RFQ was published in the Brownsville Herald. The deadline for the submission to respond to the RFQ is June 14th, and then the moving proposals will be evaluated by multiple departments. And the highest scoring firm will be selected to submit a proposal to move the structure. And finally, the purchasing department will negotiate the final price, and the best qualified and best price firm will be selected. And that selection will be presented to the City Commission for final approval or denial. And depending if the commission moves forward with the city staff's recommendation, there'll be a purchase order issued to the moving firm sometime around July 14th. Again, we're just at the first step, May 30th, with the RFQ published in the Brownsville Herald. Next slide. We plan to hopefully have a member of the Texas Association of Structural Movers selected. They're not licensed, as I understand, by the state. They're licensed by the association. And the requirements of the association is that their members have workman's comp insurance, that the firm is bonded, and that they have the proper and quality equipment as part of their company. They have specialized moving trailers and experience actually in moving trailers, moving structures. Membership is not mandatory to consider a company in Texas a moving company. Membership in the association. Next slide. And with that, we'll be glad to answer any questions on the status of the project.
Mr. Vasquez, my concern, and I think we're going to have Mr. Walker probably talk right now too, but my concern on this project is just going to be the time frame. Obviously, as you know, I mean, I've done some restorations myself, quite a few, and I was chair of the council as well at one time. But my concern is just going to be, one, it's going to be the addition once it's moved. I think the structural integrity of that addition, what's going to happen to it once this building is disrupted and once it starts to get moved, whether that's going to survive. But more so, my concern is going to be once it's at Linear Park, what's the time frame for the restoration and what's going to be done to safeguard the building from any vandalism or from any other issues that might happen?
Yes, Mayor, the staff has only been authorized to implement the first phase of the project, which is the relocation of the building, including the design and construction of the foundation. We think that the budget that has been approved by the City Commission will just be enough to manage the relocation and the construction of the foundation cost. And so once that structure is moved, additional funding will be necessary to perform any type of stabilization or security of the building. We would have to come back to the commission for that funding. And we're also not authorized to begin any steps on the restoration or the remodeling. I think that's an additional step that the city commission will have to consider. How does the city commission plan to approach the project? Will it be a restoration project? Will it be a remodel, combination of a remodel and a restoration? And then who will perform that project management? Will that be done by a third party private provider? All those decisions need to be made by the city commission. At this point, we only have the authorization to relocate the structure and place it in the linear park.
But what would the time frame be then in regards to the next steps for the city commission, like these next decisions that are going to need to take place? Obviously, it's going to involve some budgeting. So do we have a time frame for that? Because I don't want this, certainly it's very sensitive structure, and being at Linear Park is going to probably lead to some people being upset that it's there in that condition. So do you have any idea on when this might come to the commission again for the next decisions?
If we stay the course on the RFQ for the mover, the actual move of the building would be in the August-September timeframe of this year. And then once that's complete, we would return immediately to the commission to secure additional direction on what to do with the structure, whether that includes any temporary repairs or temporary security for the building, and then how the commission would like the staff to proceed with a restoration strategy. That would probably be towards the end of the year.
Rick, could you move it back to the map?
There you go.
So I'm trying to see that orange area you were talking about. And
I'm moving my cursor.
oh, there it is. Okay, I found it. So it's kind of like to the left of the ranch house, Larella's ranch house, somewhere in that unit or that section.
That's correct. What has not been decided is the final footprint and the direction of the building. I think those are decisions that still need to be made with input from the Historic Preservation Commission and any other interested stakeholders.
I kind of share some of the mayor's concerns about that second part of the building. Who made the determination to include it? Because the original Neil House is really the one that I think that we should be going after to preserve, similar to the Laureles Ranch House. But so who made that determination, or did we?
No, Commissioner, I believe that we never, in our presentations to the commission, we never differentiated between the original footprint of the Neal House structure and the Maganowicz expansion. So our assumption was the entire structure would be relocated. However, if the commission wishes to provide additional direction, we will accept that and work with the engineer and the mover. There are other stakeholders that have expressed opinions. We don't have the official position at this point of the Historic Preservation Commission on that matter. We have the opinion of a couple of members. We also have an opinion from the Texas Historical Commission, but we certainly could go out and solicit those opinions from those different stakeholders and bring that back to the city commission if that's the desire of the commission.
I think, it kind of, and I don't want to be disparaging toward the architect, but it really kind of has a different feel to it, judging from the pictures, right? And the other thing, it would probably reduce costs substantially, I would think, with just going for the house. But I think you ought to maybe look into that and give us some options there.
Rick, what was the opinion of the Texas Historic Commission?
They felt that the architect is a significant figure in the architectural field within Texas, and that this is a great example of her work, and they thought that it should be moved with the original structure.
Okay, thanks.
Did anyone else express that same opinion or anything contrary to that?
No, sir. We've heard from a couple of members from the Historic Preservation Commission that feel that the addition is not as historically significant as the original footprint, and so we certainly would be willing to go back to the HPC and get the full board's recommendation if that's the wish of the commission.
I think it's worth pursuing.
I just basically feel that we should have the actual opinion and not make that decision to lose it on a financial basis. I'd like to know what the official position is and then make that decision after that. If I'm not mistaken, there was recently a home that she designed demolished in another part of town, if I'm not mistaken. And I'd hate to lose another piece of her work if she is historically significant.
Hi, Rick. This is John. I like to. I share the mayor's concern with, moving this structure to the park and nothing being done for 6 months or whatever. And I think we should be starting the planning process on the rehab and remodeling or restoration that needs to be done right now, so that there's not a lot of time wasted.
I agree with that. Plus, hurricane season is coming, so regardless of where it is, what, if anything, can we do to protect it if there were a hurricane?
During that Laureles Ranch House, it was secured very well, I think, with fencing, and I think it was done very well. So that should be able to be duplicated on this one, I would think.
We certainly can tee up the decision points for the beginning of the second phase and bring those to the commission so you can provide staff additional direction on how to proceed with the restoration and or remodeling, and then some interim steps on the roof and the security of the building, so that the commission consider whatever funding impacts there will be, as well as giving us direction on how to move forward.
If you could give us some cost differentials on moving with and without that section. And again, I'm not trying to disparage that architect in any way.
Yes, sir.
I've got various concerns. First and foremost, you said that recently KCI was already retained to do the structural foundation. How many other companies submitted a proposal and how was KCI chosen?
So we'll take that. We use the Public Works Department to select the engineering firms on their rotation list.
So it wasn't based on like lowest cost or anything like that, or like specific expertise in historical structures?
I'd have to, I don't know if anybody from Public Works is on the, is in the meeting, but for the foundation, the expertise is the use of a structural engineer. And I don't know whether we considered whether the structural engineer had expertise in historic structures.
This is Doro with the Public Works Department. On this particular item, when Mr. Velez requested an engineer, we did select based on our on-call list, the one that we felt was more qualified for the type of structure that was being moved.
Okay, and I'm glad that I see now Mr. Walker is there because I was under the impression that members of the Historical Commission were there. That was another concern that I have because I have seen the Neal House on the agenda twice now for the Historic Preservation Committee, but they haven't even had an opportunity to discuss it. So it really bothers me that there's already action being taken towards well, at least for the structural foundation without even it going through them, especially considering that a proposal was submitted a while ago that would have included the structural foundation, the movement and renovation that was considerably less than what we're now allocating for that. So it's hard with the way the process is designed right now, it's hard to see if this is more cost effective or if it'll actually cost more. And for that reason, well, I would, I know that there's some members of the Historical Commission present there, and I know that that Mr. Hansel Hernandez was here for from the Texas Historical Commission recently. At any point was the Neal House discussed during his visit, and do you all know if he recommended that the McGonigal addition be included or not? And if Mr. Walker, if you would like to speak to it, or I think Mr. Loff was going to be there and Mr. Garza was there too. So I'll let y'all take the microphone.
Want me to speak? Yeah. Okay, my name is Calvin Walker. I'm a local architect. I'm also the chairman of what I still call the Heritage Council. And we are very interested in participating in the discussion about how this Neal House will be positioned on the site. We haven't been asked, and we would like very much to offer an opinion about that. As far as the condition of the house, obviously it's in a very bad state of disrepair. And it's been 3 years since we first tried to get the city to put a tarp or something on the roof. In fact, 3 of the members of the Brownsville Historical Association offered to pay for a blue tarp from Walmart to put on the roof to keep damage from occurring every time it rains. And Larry Loft pointed out the other day in a meeting with city staff that every time it rains, the building is more and more damaged. And so we appreciate the city moving the residents to Linear Park and taking the lead in that. However, we want to be involved in the actual restoration of the Neal House. And what we're asking is, once the house is moved there, that the roof be completely covered to protect it until we can get in there with the city's permission and start doing restoration work. We are very interested in participating. We haven't been asked at this point. We would like to offer an opinion. I received an email from Mr. Hernandez with the Texas Historical Commission today. And he is of the opinion that the McGonigal addition is important enough to move along with the Neal House. I disagree with his assessment. I told him that. I asked him to reconsider his opinion or his stand on the issue. Ruth McGonigal, for your information, was the first female to get a degree from Rice University in architecture in I think it was 1924. She never sought to be licensed, and she never called herself an architect. I'm aware of only 3 designs that she was involved in. One is the house on Sunset. The other was the house recently demolished in Rio Viejo. And of course, the addition to the Neal House. Speaking as an architect, I do not feel that the addition to the Neal House has any architectural significance whatsoever. I appreciate the designs of the 2 houses that she did. I love the house in Rio Viejo, and I was just dumbstruck that a doctor here bought it and decided to tear it down. I wish that people in the city would have been more upset about that demolition than what we're talking about here with the McGonigal addition to the Neal House. And the reason that I'm against moving McGonigal's addition to the Neal House is that we, and I'm speaking individually here, I have not discussed this with the council, but we believe that we need to tell the story of the Neal House. The addition for the Art League benefit was done at a much later time. Now, if this building was going to be occupied by the Art League at the linear park, then I would say, okay, well, that makes sense to move that portion that was designed for the Art League, but it's not. And I personally think it's kind of ugly. And the other thing to realize, if we get our way, where the house is oriented to that middle spine between 6th and 7th Street, just like the Laudelis house is, then the part that you're going to see when you're driving down 7th Street is the ugliest part of the house, the McGonigal addition. And so I personally do not see the benefit of moving that and reattaching it to the Neal House, because obviously you can't move the whole thing at once. It has to be in pieces. So all we ask is that we are involved in the process of how the house should be oriented. And we would like very much to be involved in the restoration of the Neal House.
Mayor, I'd like to say that I concur with Mr. Walker on all that. And also, I would like to inquire about funding that we had already appropriated somewhere between $100,000 and $200,000, which was supposed to be earmarked for, in particular, to protect or cover up the roof to protect the building. So I would ask 2 things, to give us an accounting of the $190,000, and number 2, to include Mr. Walker's group as he's requested.
Calvin, thank you. And I agree with your request to be included not only in the orientation, but the restoration of the house. I remember that house. My older sister took art lessons there many, many, many years ago, and I think I was in there one time when I was a kid. I look forward to seeing and being inside of it once again. It looks like it won't take you long to decide on the orientation. Sounds like you guys have already discussed it. Am I right? But we can still go according to the timeline of the move that we had just heard about.
Well, we haven't discussed it as a council, but I would think that everybody would prefer that it face that linear walkway, because we can see in the future, if there were other historical residences or buildings moved to Linear Park, that linear walkway would be the perfect place for people to walk in the evening and go from house to house, building to building, have parties, etc. And so for that reason, I think that most of the people on the council would vote to have it face inwardly toward that walkway.
I agree, but you won't, to make that decision won't delay the move timeline that we heard about, correct?
I wouldn't think so. You know, it's, we meet on Fridays at noon and we're usually out of there by 1 o'clock, and it shouldn't take long to make a decision like that.
Great. And have you guys talked about the timeline or how long it will take to do the restoration?
No, ma'am.
No.
Larry Loff would be in charge of it because I was doing kind of a introduction of him a couple of years ago. And I had in my notes that he had been involved in at least 10 restoration projects in Brownsville. And I bounced it off of him before I got up to speak. And he said, well, actually, it's more than 50. And so I was stunned by that. And so he has the experience. He's kind of an archaeologist at the same time, because he'll go through and start peeling layers of paint to get back to the original color of a building or a wall. And so he would be the person that would certainly be involved and be managing the restoration process.
Great. I think that's wonderful. I totally agree.
Thanks, Calvin, for your advice and your expertise. And I know Larry couldn't be here, as I understand it, but I know he'll be involved in the process, and we certainly want you and Larry to be involved in the process. But if I had to guess, I think it's probably, Commissioner Gowan, I think it's probably about a year-long restoration process, more or less, just looking at it, basing it on the Laureles project as well. I think it's safe to assume about a year-long project, depending on funding, of course, as well.
I think that's a good point and probably very realistic.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor.
Calvin, thanks for your time, and thanks for sharing your thoughts with us.
Yes, sir.
So just for my own clarification, are we all in agreement then that this piecemeal process that they're doing right now is not what we want? We would rather it be all inclusive and involve the historical commission since the beginning?
Commissioner, it's not an action item, so it's kind of hard to give direction as a whole without voting on it. But I think we're on the same page as far as wanting to be measured in our approach as far as what we do. So I think we probably need to figure out how best to approach this going forward, whether it requires some sort of commission action or not. Noel or Rick, do y'all have any input based on what you're hearing from the commission as to how to proceed on this?
Mayor, I think we're going to go back to the Historic Preservation Commission to pick up whatever concerns they have with the relocation of the building, and those recommendations will be incorporated into the relocation project. As far as the restoration, we're not there yet. We don't have direction from the commission. We will come back to the commission for the commission to give us direction on how to proceed. If that's providing with the Preservation Association, we'll gladly do that. We just we weren't ready for those decisions at this point in the project. We merely were focused on moving the building and placing it on an appropriate foundation.
Yeah, I think we need to have our ducks in a row on what we're going to do after the fact as well, as much as possible, right? And based on the input of the commission, the HPC, I think, as far as what their recommendations may be, and then getting a solid timeline on possible restoration time would be helpful. All of that before I mean, obviously we have to go through the procurement process on the move. I don't see an issue with that, but I just think we need to make sure that we have a process and a real solid timeline in place.
For our preservation committee, we can do that. And that's a very flexible pivot we can make, and we'll take our marching orders now. I would suggest though for the second phase that there be formal action taken so that we can be a lot more so there's more clarity up front as to expectations from the commission and formal direction. So we can do that. If y'all want to give us direction now, we can begin to work with the Historic Preservation Group and then interject them now for the first phase. And that way there's continuity for the second phase where we can get formal direction, put it in the budget, get the funding done, and outline the steps that you all would like to see us take for that. Because that's going to be a much longer process as well.
Mr. Bernal, I think that's certainly the sentiment of the commission is to get them involved and have their expertise on board from the beginning. However, I'm not sure we can take formal action on that since it's not an action item. It's only a work session.
Yeah, we don't need action. I think direction. I think it's pretty clear. The direction's here, and that's how we have used work session in the past, where we just need some general direction, and it sounds like that's what the commission has provided today.
Okay.
That is finally being addressed because, like Dr. Gowan said, hurricane season is coming up, and a few years ago we were given notice that the roof, didn't survive, and it's been getting water damage. So I'm just so glad that this has finally come to the front burners, and I hope that we can restore it as historically accurate as possible and make sure that it's a place that everybody in the community can enjoy and learn from the way it's supposed to be.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. This house has been sitting there for a long time, so we gotta do something. All right, anybody else?
The only thing that I would like to, this is my personal point of view, as we start going into fixing historical buildings like this one, like the Neal House and like the Fire Station #1 on Adams Street, we need to include the historical commission, but we also need to find ways to make it cost effective, because this is going to set a precedent for everyone else in the city who's a historical property owner. We don't want to set the example that you have to go follow this route and make it really expensive and then make it cost prohibitive for people to maintain or renovate their historical properties. So as we go through this process, I would like to have some emphasis on making it cost effective. That's it.
Thanks, Commissioner. Anyone else? All right, thank you.
Our next item is presentations. Item 1, notification to City Commission pursuant to Chapter 38 Code of Ethics, Article 6, Financial Disclosure, Section 38-156, Financial Disclosure Report, subsection F1G, regarding personal financial statements filed by city officials, designated city employees, and candidates for City Commission, Office of the City Secretary. Okay, I'll be presenting this item, and that's just the notification slide. You can go to the next slide. Okay, the city auditor conducted an audit of personal financial statement filings as part of an ethics review report that his office did on February 22nd of 2021. So after consultation with the city attorney and city management, we felt that to foster transparency and accountability and to show compliance with Chapter 38 concerning the personal financial statements and what the responsibilities of the Office of the City Secretary are, and to show compliance with the city auditor's review, that we would make this notification to the City Commission. Next slide. So who is required to file and what are the filing requirements? In Section 38-156, a financial disclosure report is required, and it's also known as a personal financial statement. The form that we use is the Texas Ethics Commission Form PFS Local. It is filed with the City Secretary, and we are the filing authority only. The responsibility of the official or employee filing is to ensure the timely filing and completeness of the report filed. Current city officials and designated employees, how often and the due date is they're due annually by April 30th of each year for the prior calendar year. And the officials that are required to file are City Commission members, city manager, and city attorney. Candidates for City Commission are required to file within 10 days of the date of filing as a candidate, and who is any non-incumbent candidate for a place on the City Commission. Next slide. So just to summarize again, for current city officials and employees, they're due by April 30th, and for candidates, 10 days from the date of filing. Next slide. So as a way to track these things, I just came up with a spreadsheet where I do track these items of when I send reminders, when I send second reminders, and other notes that I put in my spreadsheet. So for the current city officials, which include the current city commission and the city manager and the city attorney, you can see the dates that those personal financial statements were filed with the city secretary's office. Next slide, please. The only notable item of all of those would be that per the provision of the ordinance, it states that the city secretary may for good cause grant an extension of time in which to file a report upon written requests submitted in advance of the deadline. The extension may not exceed 15 days. Commissioner Joel Munguia requested an extension of time to file on April 30th, 2021 by phone and in writing. The city secretary did grant the extension of time to file until May 15th based on the cause given of unforeseen personal circumstance. Commissioner Munguia did file his personal financial statement on May 14th, 2021 by email. And of course, email is an accepted form of submitting the form to the city secretary. Next slide, please. This is the report of candidates for city commission that filed for the May 1st, 2021 general election. You can see all of the candidates. They're listed by the office that they're sought, and you can see the date that they filed. And this is just my spreadsheet of how I track that item to you in a way to be able to present that to the auditor or anyone else that questions. Next slide, please. So in conclusion and summary, all current officials and designated employees and candidates for city commission have filed a personal financial statement for the calendar year 2020 as is required by the Code of Ethics. Any questions?
Thank you.
Mayor,
Yes, Commissioner, go ahead.
I'm gonna have to excuse myself for about half an hour and I'll be back.
Sure, just let us know, or sign back in and then just have Lori know when you come back so that she can note it on her.
I'm just gonna go on mute. I've got another forum to attend and it shouldn't be that long. So I'll just be on mute and I'll be around.
Thanks, Commissioner.
Okay, so now we can move on to consent agenda items 1 through 5.
Okay, do we have any motions on the consent agenda?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to public hearings. Public hearing item 1, public hearing and action on first reading on ordinance number 2021-898-GG to readopt Chapter 24 Parks and Recreation, Section 74-18 Local Standards of Care for an additional year as per ordinance guidelines, Parks and Recreation Department.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Commission, members of the public. My name is Damaris McGlone. I am the Parks and Recreation Director for the City of Brownsville. This is a readoption of our license or our level of care for our children to exempt us from being a child care license through Human Resources Code for the state of Texas. So in summary, in order to be in compliance with this section, it is required that the City of Brownsville adopt local standards of care for the Parks and Recreation Department's children's recreation programs. Section 74-18 provides the authority for local standards of care for the Parks and Recreation Department's rec programs versus being a licensed and accredited child care facility as per our home rule authority. Next slide, please. So our scope and analysis is that it defines common use terms, provides regulations for program administration, its rules, monitoring, required supervision, employee requirements, facility operation, and the physical environment, and the physical health and medication standards. We may not advertise that we are a childcare facility. Next slide. And so, for example, it can talk about things like ratios. So one recreation attendant per every 15 participants from ages 5 to 11. And it goes detailed if a child has a special need, if it's in an aquatic environment. So it's very specific that way. Next slide. Other standards and requirements include staff volunteer and training requirements and health and medication standards. Next slide. Any comments or questions? We do recommend readoption so that we are compliant with the state.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody that's here on this item? Okay, do I have a motion to close?
To close?
We have a motion to close. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? All right. Now, do we have
Motion
any?
to approve?
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Public hearing item 2, public hearing and action on first reading of ordinance number 2021-1683 to approve the voluntary annexation petition of Madeira Properties Limited on a 684.52 acre tract of land and directing the extension of municipal services to the same Planning and Redevelopment Department.
Mayor, Commissioners, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, great. Sorry about that. So this is an annexation, it's voluntary by the petition of Madeira Properties LTD. The total acreage of this property that's being annexed is 684.5 acres. It lies on the corner of I-69, US 77, Highway 77, and south of Highway 100. Next slide, please. So here is a view, an aerial map showing the subject property that's going to be annexed into the city. Now, the entire property tract is actually, the 684 acres is half split in that area that you see there in yellow. Some of that is inside city limits. However, the area in red is the subject property that will be coming into the city. Next slide, please. It's a bird's eye view of the property, and you can see our city limits there. The yellow will eventually extend to that red area that you see before you in the slide. Next slide, please. So based on that information presented, staff does recommend approval to annex 684.52 acres of the Madeira properties located on the corner of I-69 and Highway 100. I believe there is some video footage available for the commission if they wish to see it. I'm also available to take any questions at this time.
Okay. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody that's here on this item? Okay. We have a motion to close?
Mayor, I'm back. I'll make a motion to close.
Thank you, Commissioner. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? All right, motion passes. Do we have a motion on the action?
I'll move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mayor, Commissioner. You guys have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Public hearing item 3, public hearing and action on first reading on ordinance number 2021-1684 to annex into the city of Brownsville boundary limits a property described as being 27.18 acres out of Share 14 Espiritu Santo grant conveyed to Almedo Development LLC by deed filed March 26, 2021 by instrument number 2021-12706. Official records, Cameron County, Texas. Planning and Redevelopment Department.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. So once again, we have an annexation petition. This was a voluntary petition to annex into the city of Brownsville limits. The petition comes from Omito Development LLC, and it is a subdivision that has already been completed. It's 27.18 acres. It will be a future single-family residential development of 121 lots, and it's fronting Summerhill Boulevard. Next slide, please. So just as a little overview of the annexation procedure, Texas Local Government Code, Chapter 43, provides home rule municipalities to annex into their adjacent and contiguous city limits. Although the following steps were addressed in both annexations, voluntary petition to annex, when to receive that, to the written service agreement, public hearing, proper noticing of annexation, and noticing to school districts and public entities. Next slide. So this is just an aerial view of the subdivision to be that will be annexed into the city. Next slide. Here's another aerial view. So it's off of FM 1732 and Summerhill Boulevard. Next slide. This is the subdivision that was submitted by the developer. Like I said, it has been completed. Next slide. And so staff does recommend the approval to annex the 27.18 acres of land into the city of Brownsville city limits. Again, there is video available for commission if you do wish to see it. If you have any questions, I'm available at this moment.
All right, thank you, Martin. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody here on this item? Okay, do we have a motion to close?
To close public hearing.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Do we have any motions on the item?
Move to approve.
Motion to second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to items for individual consideration. Item 1, consideration and action on ordinance 2021-1685, authorizing the issuance, sale, and delivery of $7,565,000 in aggregate principal amount of City of Brownsville, Texas, combination tax and revenue certificates of obligation, Series 2021, to be purchased by the Texas Water Development Board, securing the payment thereof by authorizing the levy of an annual ad valorem tax and a pledge of certain surplus revenues of the city's municipal landfill system, and approving and authorizing the execution of a paying agent/registrar agreement and all other instruments and procedures related thereto, financial services.
Who's presenting on this?
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Commissioners. Mr. Tom Spurgeon is on the line to help us make the presentation regarding the ordinance.
Yes, hey, Loopy, this is Tom. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Very good. I want to be sure I got it done correctly. Right. The action item for the commission tonight relates to a a loan that you're receiving and a grant in connection with some flood infrastructure projects that the city will be financing. What you're actually approving tonight in item 1 here is the actual issuance of the certificates of obligation. You've obviously issued COs before on many different occasions. The difference with these is that they bear no interest at all. So what you will be doing is authorizing COs that you'll essentially just be paying back the principal over a period of about 21 years. This is a special program under what's called the Flood Infrastructure Fund Program for the Water Development Board. There's also some grants associated with these particular flood infrastructure projects that were the authority to enter into those grants was actually approved by the commission on April 6th. So what you're doing tonight is approving the loan portion of a couple of the flood programs, and that's essentially it for tonight's action item.
Okay, does anybody have any questions? I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
To approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Item 2, consideration and action to award a contract for the street and drainage improvement project for Avenida de la Plata, Elsa Street, Marvis Drive, and San Pedro Lane, located in District 1, for the amount of $4,226,409.50 to Peterson Construction Incorporated, IFB number SDI-24-0121, as budgeted in the Capital Improvement Program, Engineering and Public Works.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. As the item read, we received 6 bids for this. The low bid for this particular project was from Peterson Construction in the amount of $4,226,409.50. We're recommending approval as this is being funded through our CIP program. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Does anybody have any questions?
No, I'm all in favor because I've been waiting for this since 2019. So thank you for finally getting to it.
You're welcome.
All right. Any other questions or concerns? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve from Commissioner Galassi. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 3, consideration and action to authorize the city manager to enter into a professional services agreement with Safe Built LLC to provide plan review services to ensure plans comply with adopted building codes, and authorizing Safe Built LLC's fee structure and planning department processing fee. Planning and Redevelopment Department.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the commission. This item is in response to the current level of residential construction activity that the city is experiencing. We've had several builders reach out to the city to find alternatives to our current plan review process. The current residential construction peak is overtaxing our staff's bandwidth, and this will provide an alternative to staff review provided by the private sector. In addition to this activity, we have been authorized to hire one additional plan reviewer. However, this is not a skill set that you typically find readily available within a community. It takes us anywhere from 6 months to a year to hire someone and then train them in the different codes that we administer. Next slide. So with this private sector option, this slide provides a comparison between the City of Brownsville Plan Review Program and what Safe Built Texas LLC provides. We have 2 full-time residential plan reviewers that review on average 600 to 700 residential plans a year. We're on target this year to probably hit about 1,000 plans, residential plans here in Brownsville. Safe Build is able to access an unlimited number of subcontractors to help them with residential plan review. Both the City of Brownsville and Safe Built review compliance of the plans to the 2018 International Residential Code. And on the city side, our review timeline is just based on the number of plans that are coming. We only have 2 individuals. So the more plans that are submitted, the longer time it takes for us to work our way through those plans. Safe Built Texas LLC is promising the private sector 5-day approval of plans if the document submitted is correct. And if not, then it'll go through a review and a resubmission process. We charge, the city planning department charges $50 for a residential plan review, and that includes unlimited reviews and resubmissions. The private sector provides the same plan review service for $150 for only 2 reviews. If there's still errors on your plans, they will charge the builders an additional $80 per hour, and they will have a local presence. Next slide. And with that, we'll take any questions the commission may have.
Mr. Vasquez, is there a budget for this? That's one thing I didn't see in any of this. I know it's a contract, but I didn't see that it was for any quantity of money.
Basically, Mayor, the way it will work is we will accept the private sector's plan review fee. We'll also accept the initial submission by the builder, and then both the plan set and the fee will be turned over to the private plan reviewer. So what we're tacking on is a document handling and fee management fee on top of the private sector plan reviewer's fee. So it'll total $200 for the initial plan review to the private sector builder. The subsequent reviews, if the $80 is assessed, that'll be directly done between the private builder and the private plan reviewer. The city will not be involved.
Okay, so basically you're just passing this cost on to the builder.
That's correct.
And is this something that requires being listed on our website for fees or costs or anything like that? Do we need to publish the rates, in other words?
Well, we're certainly going to make them available to our builder customers. Again, this is optional. It's only if a builder feels that he's trying to accelerate his project. We are trying to deal with the increase plan review demand internally. Again, we're going to hire 1 additional plan reviewer, and management is also authorized that our 2 plan reviewers will be working overtime evenings and weekends to keep up with this peak demand.
Well, I'm glad that we're bringing an extra person on. And if you see that we need any others, please let us know.
Thank you, Mayor.
Anyone else?
Rick, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I understand when a developer submits a plan and then there are corrections to be made, when that developer goes and resubmits the plan to the city, that plan is moved to the end of the line. It doesn't have priority in the process. So can you confirm that or expound on that?
Commissioner, I don't believe that's the way it works. I'll check with the 2 plan reviewers tomorrow, but I'll tell you, we have a lot of variation. We have some plans that only go through review once or twice, but we do have a lot of plans that are submitted, and in order to bring them into compliance with the 2018 IRC that the city commission adopted, those may go through 3 or 4, maybe even 5 reviews sometimes. So I'll make sure. I don't think we send them to the back of the line. I think that's just an ongoing interchange between the designer or architect that's submitting the plans and our plan reviewer.
Thank you. And I have another question on the commercial plan backlog. How are we looking on that side?
We have 2 commercial plan reviewers, one that deals with commercial vertical construction, and then we have another commercial plan reviewer that deals with everything else commercial. That's anywhere from fencing, signs, pools, all that other stuff, and they're able to keep up with their work pipelines and have a pretty rapid turnaround.
Are we seeing the same type of growth on the commercial side that with the in comparison to the residential?
No, most of our growth is residential right now.
Okay. Thank you, Rick.
Mr. Vasquez, since we're on the topic, do we have the same individual that reviews the initial plans and then reviews the corrections that are requested, or do you typically have different people looking at the same application or permit request?
They're the same people. We have 2 commercial. One handles one part of the commercial pie, and the other one handles the other part. So you're only talking to one plan reviewer. On the residential side, we have 2 residential plan reviewers. They'll pick up the call for the other one if the phone's ringing and questions are being asked, and we can access the information. Again, I want to thank the commission for investing in our digital permitting development system, because our efficiency will go up as the access to the data improves. And we've had our kickoff meeting with our preferred or our selected software provider, and we're really excited about that. But it is about a 9-month process to take our staff through the learning curve of new development software. But
okay, does anybody else have any questions, comments? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve?
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks.
Item 4, consideration and action on 22nd amended declaration of local disaster for public health emergency. City Manager's Office.
Good evening, Mayor and Commission. This is the 22nd amended declaration. If approved, it would go in effect until July 6, 2021. What it mostly does, it is consistent with GA 36, which to no governmental entity being able to require a face covering or mandate another person to wear a face covering. However, it does have exceptions with state-supported living centers, governmental-owned hospitals, and government-operated hospitals, Texas Department of Criminal Justice, Juvenile Justice Department, and county and municipal jails. And then public schools will continue to abide by policies up to in guidance with the Texas Education Agency until June 4th, 2021. And so basically what the measures do is they delete some of the measures that are no longer applicable for consistency with GA 36. Next slide, please.
Honorable Mayor and Commissioners, good evening. 22nd Amendment order comes at a time where our trauma service area known as V, the hospital capacity and our infection rate as of May 26 is really at 1.8%. And we've seen this trend between 4 and 5% now for about three weeks. Our vaccination rates along the board and in Cameron County and Brownsville are some of the best in the state. And in fact, there's an article today on the Rio Grande Guardian summarizing that border rates for vaccination have been some of the best. We continue to look at our city strategy that we'll continue to work with businesses and individuals. The fire department and communications continue to be key for us. And as we go into the summer and fall season, we will continue focused on the vaccination side as our rates of disease have decreased markedly. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez. Do we have anything else? All right, does anybody have any questions or comments?
So there is this, as far as the restrictions on masks and stuff like that, what was added as far as that goes? Or what was changed?
It was eliminated by the governor. In effect, a business owner is now able to set their own policy.
And we're following that. We're not mandating masks ourselves, but private companies can.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
My understanding, Commissioner Neese and Ms. Ramirez, please clarify this, is on federal buildings, the president did issue an executive order talking about federal buildings and masks still being required in federal buildings. There is mention of that as well, as I understand it, correct?
These federal buildings, federal terminals, there was a presidential mandate, as you can see in the orders that speak to bus terminals, bus shelters, those would still require masks. And so the measures does include that presidential order that does allow for that to occur.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that we mention that clarification since I think it applied to Commissioner Neese's question.
Yes, that's correct. That presidential order, Executive Order 13991, has been extended through September 13, 2021. It includes bus terminals, buses, and bus stops. So therefore, if we do have ridership in our buses, they are required to wear masks, whether they're at the terminal, within a bus, or sitting on a bus shelter. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to board appointments. Item 1, consideration and action on resolution number 2021-037 to appoint 2 members of the City Commission to the BCIC Sports Park Committee, BCIC City Manager's Office.
Is there any presentations on this?
Good afternoon, mayors and city commissioners. We thank you once more for the opportunity to be able to present this item once more to your agenda. Just for the record, this is Josh Mejia, Executive Director for BCAC, and this is not for a board appointment. This is simply for a committee that will be not only overseeing some of the development that we are pursuing for the Brownsville Sports Park, but also overseeing and staying informed of an upcoming RFI that will be pursued for the undeveloped land at the sports park. Our staff at BCIC makes the recommendation to have at least 2 city commissioners, or no more than 2, I should say, city commissioners that would like to participate in this informative committee that we've created as part of our processes with the board of directors.
Thank you, Mr. Mejia. I can't think of anybody better than Dr. Gowan to serve on this. I would gladly nominate Dr. Gowan.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Any other nominations?
Maybe we should table it until after the election since in District 3.
Sure, I think that's a good idea, Commissioner. Does that pose an issue for y'all, Josh?
No, not at all, Mayor. And again, we appreciate you for at least having 1 appointment. We will work with City Manager's Office to have this item once again reintroduced once the election is completed. And again, we will try to keep you all informed as much as possible regarding the developments over at the sports park.
Great, thank you.
Our next item is executive session, and I'll read the items. Executive session, item 1, closed session pursuant to section 551.087 Texas Government Code to deliberate financial or other incentives to a business prospect the city seeks to have locate within the city of Brownsville for Project Momentum. Executive session, item 2, closed session pursuant to section 551.087 Texas Government Code to deliberate financial or other incentives to a business prospect the city seeks to have locate within the city of Brownsville for Project Source. Item 3, closed session pursuant to section 551.087 Texas Government Code to deliberate financial or other incentives to a business prospect the city seeks to have locate within the city of Brownsville for Project Bumblebee.
Okay, do we have any motions to go to executive session?
So moved.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? All right, we'll recess the executive session. Thank you.
It is now 6:59 PM and the city commission will go into executive session. 7:28 PM, and you may reconvene the meeting, Mayor.
Thank you. We will reconvene. We have executive session items. Item number 1.
Okay, possible action on items as discussed in executive session. Item 1, consideration and appropriate action regarding the provision of financial or other incentives to a business prospect the city seeks to have locate within the city of Brownsville for Project Momentum.
Do we have any motions?
The motion is to proceed with approving the term sheets as discussed in executive session.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, item 2, consideration and appropriate action regarding the provision of financial or other incentives to a business prospect the city seeks to have locate within the city of Brownsville for Project Bumblebee.
Do we have any motions?
Motion to approve the city participating in the incentive package as discussed in executive session.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Next item is adjournment. Do we have any motions?
I'll move to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? All right, we stand adjourned. Thank you all. Have a great night, and we'll see you later.
There being no further business to come before the city commission, upon a duly made motion, the meeting has adjourned at 7:30 PM.